What's up?
What's up, dog?
It's good to see you again. We haven't had a chat with you for a bit. We chat on WhatsApp all the time, but
Yeah,
it's good to
because
see you
you're a
again.
busy person, Joe.
You are
You
too.
have the podcast, there's a book, you have the publishing house, you have the kids, you have the skiing.
I know. Got back into jujitsu recently, so doing that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That
So
is cool.
it is cool. I was gonna check out maybe get back into Muay Thai too, but then I think you'd
Really?
probably try and beat me up a bunch. So we'll see.
No. No, we should like spa.
I'd love to. I'd love to. For the
There's just
audience,
no
Chip's
way.
actually legit at Muay Thai, by the way. So,
No.
yeah, yeah, your form's really good.
That's how
So,
I beat people into submission.
off to a great start.
No, just no violence. No violence. I'm a very peaceful person.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Yeah.
Um, well, awesome. Well, I don't think you need much of an introduction, but you did do something recently. This wonderful
Yay.
book, AI Engineering. I am working my way through it. It is big for sure, like 500 something pages. But every page is amazing. So congrats. I don't
Ooh.
hand out compliments lightly on books, and you did a fantastic job so far. So um,
Thank you. Joey does that because I force him to. And also he said he brings this book around because it's pretty heavy so that you can use it as self-defense. So
self-defense and
yeah.
warming up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's like, yeah, like, yeah, maybe we should just do it.
that's awesome. Well, first of all, yeah, congrats on it. It's a big accomplishment. I remember when we were in Australia and New Zealand on tour. You were pretty much working nonstop on the book, so I know that you have probably one of the strongest work ethics I've seen when it comes to writing. So it's awesome to see.
When it comes to writing and only writing, I was
Only
kidding.
writing,
Uh,
actually. That's the only thing you're good at. Just kidding.
yeah, I remember, yeah, I feel like I was working hard on it, on the book because I was behind deadline. Like I don't think I would have worked that hard if I was like meeting deadline. So
Mm.
I don't think I deserve the compliment there.
Well, I'll retract my compliment then. Good job. I'm just kidding. So, that's awesome. So, I guess yeah. Well, we can turn this into a plug for your books. I think it's awesome. What is this book about?
Ooh. So you probably have heard about ChatGPT. Um, and I went to a conference recently. And I opened my talk with like, "Have you heard about ChatGPT?" And everyone just like start laughing, and it's like very stupid. But anyway, yeah. So it's about so there are a lot of like amazing models out there. So before I wanted to build an AI product, AI application, it would have to build the models yourself. But nowadays, you have access to the strongest, most powerful model, like through the API call. So the book is about like how to leverage like this incredible models to build really cool and useful applications.
Hmm. And you touched on something early on in the book too, and something that you just said. I think that is worth talking about. In the past, it was about building your own models, but in this case, you're leveraging existing models. Can you walk through um, how, I guess, how that difference works in practice?
Yeah, it is quite interesting. So I think the long story short is that there's a lot less ML, a lot more engineering. So first of all, like okay, so for one thing is that um before, right, like only like a few teams could like afford to build ML or AI applications, but today anyone can do it. And even those with like minimal coding skill, which I think it's amazing. Like it's just make it's like really low entry barriers, and if you are creative, you have ideas, you can make things happen. And it's so powerful. There's the energy I see for the community around it. It's like it's absolutely amazing. Another thing is like is also one of the very important thing is just like evaluation has become a lot harder. So before, right, like a lot of other applications is like close-ended. Like for example, fraud detections, like the transaction is fraudulent or not, or whether this email is spam or not spam. So you kind of know, like if you knew the expected output, you can compare that to the model output and see like whether the prediction is correct. But now, like with the AI models, like generative AI, like GPT models or Claude or Gemini, you can the output can be anything. that's what makes them so flexible because you can adapt these outputs to any application you want, but also make it so much harder to evaluations. So when I wrote this book, originally I had like one chapter for evaluation. It's like, oh shoot, it ended up having a two long, long chapters on evaluations because it's just so hard. Another thing is just like the more intelligent models become, the harder it is to like evaluate them. So
Hmm.
anyone can tell if like if a first grade math solution is wrong. I hope that's the case. I hope that almost everyone can say that. But it's really hard to tell if a PhD level math like question or solution is wrong.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure when you remember when one came out, and Terence Tao, like one of the biggest math geniuses out there, um, took on like evaluating a one. And then he said something about like, oh, the experience of using a one is similar to advising a not completely useless like PhD student. So I felt like if we already need like one of the brightest, smartest humans to evaluate AI, we will soon run out of like really, really smart people to evaluate like, the next future generation of AI.
That's interesting. Um, what do you think happens then?
Oh, so I think that's what a lot of the books, are like the two chapters in evaluation went into. So like there are several ways that we can evaluate AI that is like more capable than us. So I don't want to get into the discussion of like what intelligence is, because it was like, oh, how can you say AI is smarter than humans? Human like intelligence has to be this or that, right? Like this discussion I feel like it's very hard to have. But I think it's like the reality is that a lot of us are already using AI for tasks that we're not expert in. Like
Hmm.
I'm already using AI to say, help me generate like I don't know, like visualization or like illustration, not really, not quite graph. I think AI is not quite there yet, but it can help me generate like illustrations that's way better than I can draw. Or like there are a lot of tasks that maybe if I spend a lot of time and energy on doing it, I can do it, but like AI can do it way, way faster. Like for
Yeah.
example, you ask it to like summarize a book, or like even I used to read like papers, like pretty religiously. But when I was working on my book, realize I don't read papers the same way anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah, sometimes I was like giving to the like AI and it asks is like, give me the key summary, like key points from this paper. And then if I want to compare two papers, sometimes I have like two techniques. I have like a new technique introduced, and then I'm like, okay, but how is that different from like a previous techniques? So you can give AI like, both papers and say, tell me how this technique is like an improvement on like different from a previous one. So AI is pretty good at like article stuff like that. And it's been like very, very useful. Like you asked me about the question of like how do we evaluate this like AI that is more capable than us at
Yeah.
a lot of tasks, right? Yeah, so I think like one approach is that work on a functional correctness because you can just
Hmm.
evaluate AI just based on how well is it performs or like achieve a task. So if you say you want AI to let's say save energy, then you can evaluate it by how much energy is saved, right? And it's a lot of case like gaming. You can say, okay, like how or like can you score really high score on like some of this game? So or like it's very common with like coding. So it's not surprising that like coding is one of the most popular use cases for generative AI. And I think one reason is just like for coding, you can actually like functionally evaluate the output of AI. So like AI generates some piece of code and you can see like what does it compile. Second, like does it generate the expected output? And third, like is that how fast it is? Like is it efficient? So that's like functional correctness. So a lot of tasks, like if you can't evaluate a task by functional correctness, you should just do it. A lot of times people don't do it because AI is not powerful enough to do a task end to end. So you have to evaluate like some subset of tasks. Like for example, like if a say let's say very simple example, like if AI is not capable of playing a chess game end to end, of course it's not true, but let's say that example, right? So you have to evaluate based on how well each move is. And it's a lot harder to evaluate each move than to evaluate whether you win or lose a chess game. So yeah, so that's one approach. It's like functional correctness. The other one is to use AI as a judge. So that is, approach has become like really, really popular. When I started going on the book, a lot of people were like, "Oh, AI is so unreliable. How can we entrust
Mm,
AI with something so important as evaluation?" But now it's just like everywhere. And I do think this like AI can be pretty good at evaluating things. Of course, it's like AI judge using AI as a judge has a lot of pitfalls, and you need to understand like how AI work underneath the hood to like overcome those, like actually like to put guardrails around it. But I do see it's very promising. Another approach is like what I call like comparative evaluations. So I think it's from the insight that like even if humans can't really tell can't judge the absolute quality of something, we can still tell the difference, like
mm.
which one we like more. Like for example, like if you ask me, hey, give this song a concrete score, and it's like, then if you give me two songs, it's like, okay, this song sounds better. So comparative evaluation has been really, really powerful, and we see that with like the MLSys leaderboard. We see that people can also use those signals to like train the model to align these models with human preference, because you can tell the model like, hey, out of the two outputs, humans would prefer this one. So you should like try to like work toward that.
That's super cool. Um, what are some common mistakes people make when they build AI applications?
I feel like that is like a lot to unpack there. Do you want me to like continue ranting, or like should I like shorten my answer?
I prefer ranty chip.
Yeah,
So yeah,
okay. Yeah, okay. I know
preferably
that it's
as
for me to
unhinged as
rant.
you
Yeah.
possibly can be as well. That's always fun. So
Because that's what we need to do when we like drinking or something. By
we'll
the
do
way,
that.
kids, do not drink. It's not good for you.
Not good for
Um,
you.
yeah. Okay, so I think they're quite not say it definitely like with any new technologies, people are like the when the best practices and frameworks are still being developed, then certainly that we don't quite like a lot of people quite don't quite know what's the best way to do it yet. So of course there are a lot of mistakes. I don't want to mean to say it's like a lot of people are idiots or anything. Like it's just very natural when we're early on that people make mistakes. So one pitfall I usually see is that people use frameworks too soon. So, when the framework launched and everyone's so excited, like, hey, let's just try it out. We can build an agent under 5 minutes. And like a lot of people use on this kind of frameworks. And it's like why frameworks can be very useful, early using them too early can actually like add more complexity. And also like framework providers, developers can make mistakes. For example, like I see a lot of like tools to have you build like chains of applications. And a lot of these tools like have like pre-built prompts. And then when I went to those prompts, like a lot of those prompts have like typos. Like they just change underneath the hood. And like if you rely on those and if they change, and the application suddenly changed. You just don't quite know like the course, like you like flying blind. So I think like a very useful exercise right now is just like to start like maybe just on LM directly, and like start like building your system more complex. So at least like get a good sense of like how things work under the hood before like trying to abstract it away. And of course, things can change in the future, right? When those frameworks become really reliable, because just like we don't really write things like assembly code anymore. Like it's good to have abstractions, but we should only trust abstractions when those abstractions have become really, really reliable and we
Yeah.
have a good understanding of what they are. So a second thing is that um, maybe it's still a little bit silly. It's just like I do think that's a lot of useful I see is like from when people don't have a good understanding of how AI works under the hood. So for example, like in the early day of ChatGPT, a lot of people was just like, why is ChatGPT lying to me? Like, why is this like changes its answer like from this to that, right? So I think that if you understand more of like how AI model generate responses, you wouldn't ask those questions. And a lot of time people tell you it's like, oh, hallucinations are like the biggest thing, a bigger issue. I once gave a talk and I asked people, who here thinks hallucinations is a big issue for AI applications. And almost everyone raised their hand. And then when I asked, like, so who here can explain to me what hallucination is? There's like almost no hands at all.
Interesting.
And yeah, yeah, it's because like, well, what is hallucinations, right? So a hallucination is not necessarily a bad thing. Like when a model hallucinate is it's great for like creative applications. I wanted you to help me like come up like brainstorm your ideas. So I wanted to generate things that like don't exist yet, right? So that's just really great for it. It's only an issue when you work on applications that require factual consistency, and the model like generates something that's like not factually correct or factually inconsistent with with the ground truth or with the sources. So hallucination is really an issue when it's like a factual inconsistency. And it's not factual inconsistency is not a new thing. So we've been studying like how the model generate things is like inconsistent with what is given to it. It's a very common it's pretty interesting field in NLP. It's called like textual entailment, or
Mm.
like a natural language inference, like NLI. So the study is like given a hypothesis and a statement. Then you determine if the statement can be derived from the hypothesis or not. So it's similar to like, hey, given the context or like the documents, informations, does the output from the AI model consistent or can be derived from the context? So I think that is very, very useful field. So I feel like if we have a more understanding, like or more background informations on how I work under the hood, it could make life a lot easier. So I have several other things. Do you want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So another thing is like I see a lot of issues with like evaluations. I think evaluation is very important. Not sure if I have given you that sense of this conversation. Um, but yeah, evaluation is very important. And I just one thing is that like I don't see people spend enough time crafting guideline for evaluations. So like for example, like you want a lot of us like using AI through like prompt engineering. So we give the model instructions on how it should behave, right? Like what kind of outputs we expect from the model. So we need to tell the model like what kind of responses are good and what kind of responses are bad and like how you should go about it. So a lot of time we just don't see people spending enough time to like give clear guideline for the model to act.
Mm.
So one example was just like a very interesting case study from LinkedIn. And they said that they spend like when they build a chatbot to help candidates look for a job on LinkedIn, and they found out that like they end up spending way too much time just like helping like to understanding what a good response is. For example, if a candidate asks, "Is this job a good fit for me?" and the AI responds with, "No, you're going to be a terrible fit for this job." So even though it's correct, it's not going to be helpful for the audience, right? For the candidate. So you would need to like so what the candidate was looking for. It's not just like, "Hey, I'm a terrible fit," but like help like guidance or recommendations on how the candidate can improve to become a good fit for that role. Or another example was just like I was talking to a friend working on like this PM for a pretty big product, and she was telling me it's just like a lot of time like you can't just do something as simple as like asking AI to like summarize an email or like a meeting for you. Because like at first they were thinking about like, okay, how long do you want the summary to be? They thought that would be the factor users care about. Like, hey, is this like 3 sentences long too long? Or like should it be like a sentence or is it a 10 sentence? But like the length is less of a factor. What users really care about is like action item for them. It's like what do they need to do for this meeting? Or like is
Yeah.
there anything like urgent? So like you need to really understand the users and then give very clear instructions to the model to like put. And so curated a very good set of like evaluation to evaluate the model performance.
Anything else?
I feel like Joe, I can see you just like, man, I want to cut all of it out when I post edit it.
No, this is all good. I mean, it is, as you pointed out earlier too. I mean, the thing that I think piqued my interest was the notion of just developing applications is sort of flipping on its head, right? Where it's, I think before it was literally how we've been developing applications for decades, write code with machine learning models, train the model, put it out there. retrain maybe, but now it's prompts you're saying. Now it's I always find working with large language models, for example, it feels like an alien technology sort of landed on Earth, and we're just learning how to poke and prod at this thing to get it to um, do things that we think make sense, but it also does things on its own that may not make any sense. And that's, I think, one of the things people have to come to terms with is it isn't human, right? So strangely enough,
It's a
but
good thing it's not human.
why is that?
No, it's, oh wow, let's not get into that.
Okay,
But yeah, I do think that why a lot of the advances today seems new. A lot of these building blocks are not new.
right,
So language modeling, for example, like have been around since 1950s.
yeah,
A lot of us today like are very excited about RAGs, my retrieval augmented generations. And RAGs is built on like retrieval technology, and retrieval technology is not new.
hmm
So retrieval technology has been like powering like search and recommender systems for like many, many years. So I do see a lot of people coming from a search and recommender system background, and actually they have quite an edge when it comes to like building applications. Also like things like vector search. I see this like a lot of times I see that people are very excited and jump straight into vector search. But there's also like other technology like BM25. It's like it's really hard to beat. Like instead of trying to jump straight into very complex applications, like you can try with something like simpler, like term-based retrieval. Okay, I'm probably going too much into the weeds here. But yeah, so this thing is like a lot of it is like not that like scary novel. Like
yeah,
don't be scared. Yeah, like do things that when it comes to AI, maybe we don't quite know as much as we wish, but we actually know a lot more than most people think.
sure. So there's the notion of ML engineer. Um, it's been a job for a while. How is this the ML engineer different from an AI engineer?
Oof. Is that a trick question?
It's a question.
Um, um, I like this one. Okay, so I like writing, but one thing I do not like about writing is how to define things. It's I feel like no matter how you define anything, someone's gonna get upset. So I feel like trying to define what is an AI engineer is or like what an ML engineer is quite tricky. And it sort of depends from like organization to organizations. So for example, in a lot of teams, I see just like now engineers and AI teams are like the same, like they work on the same problem. And that makes a lot of sense because in vast majority of generative AI system I see, um, generative AI is used together with classical ML. So it's not
Mm,
like or, right? So for example, you have a system, but maybe before you send a request to like maybe like GPT, you might want to have like a intent classifications first. And I say, hey, what is this request about? So they can route it to a correct like model, or maybe you can route it to
mm,
humans, or maybe you can like fetch from like an FAQ. You don't even need AI at all for some requests, right? So like having the intent classifications, you can do that with classical like machine learning model. Or like a lot of time, like before you send the response back to the user, you might want to score it. Like, is this good enough? No, does it contain PI informations? Is it safe? So you can have those like guardrails like implemented using classical AI. And also like we mentioned about we already talk about like a lot of vector search or like retrieval systems like can come from classical machine learning. So it's not or. So you can
yeah.
if you a team if you want to build like a really good and complex and use like not complex, hopefully not too complex, but like useful application to address like real world problems, you will likely need both like classical ML and generative AI. However, I also see like a lot of teams when they have like separate teams because like generative AI focuses more on like working exclusively with generative AI. So maybe like focus a lot on prompt engineering, focus a lot on like evaluations, focus on like interface design for the application or checking like user feedback. Because with conversational AI, you have an entire new kind of user feedback.
Yeah.
So before, right, like recommended system, for example, you can evaluate like you have feedback from users, like you can click on the Gemana citation or not, or people asking like thumb up, thumb down, or like a different kind of feedback, right? But like with conversational AI, people can just blend in the feedback in the conversations. So sometimes I was just going through like a lot of conversation from Share GPT, and I see a lot of feedback like this. It's like, oh, make it shorter. Or like, no, 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 I want to do it in Java, not in this. So it's those are the feedback. You need to extract those feedbacks so that you can like first it gives you understanding of your applications, and the second you can use this information to like improve your model. For example, if a lot of people like complaints, it's like, oh, it's too long, or like make it shorter, then you might want to like change a prompt to make the applications less verbose. So I do think it's like because there's a lot of new things with generative AI. So I do see some teams just like separate the
Mhm.
organizations for generative AI, and we call them like AI engineering.
What are your thoughts on the AI agents right now? Because it's what we're filming this early 2025. This is supposed to be the year of AI agents. What are your thoughts on agents?
Ooh, ooh. What are the thoughts on agents, Joe? I feel like this is a tough question.
Um, well, I mean, some of the things that I see right now is, every company is going to be adopting AI agents to do all sorts of work everywhere in the company. Um, and just it'll magically everyone will be using agents by year end. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's because it feels like the conversation was really about chatbots assistance for maybe the past year and a half, 2 years, and now all of a sudden it's. I think the conversation really started. Agents I started noticing were becoming more in vogue. What was it? Maybe early last year? Maybe it was
Mm.
sort of the zeitgeist earlier. But when I'd hang out with Andrew, and agents like the only thing that
It's okay. You're on first name basis with Andrew. You don't need to say
oh, sorry, Doctor Eng, but yeah, it's like okay, there's got to be something here. If somebody, if people if the smart people I know are talking about agents, and so I was curious about your thoughts on agents.
So to me, agent is not something new. The concept like autonomous agents have been around like for a long time. So I don't know. When I was writing this, I was like, wow. So is there anything new about it? I was kidding. A lot of new things about it. But I do things like I'm very excited about agents because like the idea of having like some like autonomous agents like AI is so smart, so we can act as our like coaches, co-workers, interns, it's like pretty cool, pretty
Yeah.
exciting. So the way I see agent is that is it's inevitable. So what is an
Hmm.
agent? So an agent is like anything that can perceive the environment and interact with the environment, right? So for example, it's a case of like a coding assistant, then the environment is like the computer or the code assistant, and the actions it can take to interact with the environments are like maybe edit file, view file, like search file. So AI, like an AI agent, an AI powered agent, is characterized like is is okay. Let's do this one. So an AI powered agent, capability is determined by like one, the set of tools that it can use, like which is like give it like actions that it can perform. The second, it is planning capability. So that like given a task in an environment, the agent will like think about a plan. They utilize on the tools or actions that it can do to achieve that plan, right? So the more action it can do, so the more tools it can use, then the more things it can do. And like the more and smarter, the better plan it can do, then it can come up with like more efficient plan or like just some plan. So a lot of things that we use nowadays are only agent. Like ChatGPT is an agent, right? Like so why is it an agent? Because like it organizes the environment is the internet. What action it can do is
Hmm.
that it can do like code calculator, it can do a code, execute code, it can generate images, it can generate like text responses. So like it's already an agent, and it uses the model, GPT, whatever version it is right now, to become its brain and to come up with a plan, like how to execute, like how to like take and given a task from the user, how to use on the tool it has access to like to resolve the task. So I think the question is like, how do we get the agent this year or like in the future to become like even more powerful? So right
Mm.
now, like you, each agent maybe has access to a very limited set of tools, right? But maybe you can give it even more access to like even more tools because with more tools, it can do even more things. And like second, like how to make the model, the planning capability even better. Because a lot of times it's like if you had a lot of access to a lot of tools, we don't know how to use them well. We just like end up like wasting a lot of like flops, like just like wasting a lot of like compute power. So yeah, so I think I see it's just like I'm excited about it because who wouldn't want your AI applications or assistant to be more powerful, to do more things for you? So just I see this like maybe like this year, in the future, slowly, or maybe not slowly, maybe very, very fast. We would just like give AI more capabilities.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm already thinking of ways I can use agents in my own company and personal life as well. So it's should be fun. Hope so. I
Yeah.
guess we'll find out. So
It's just a funny story because like the way I pronounce agent, some people say sound like Asians. It's like ASIAN. It was like,
AI
why would you want
agents.
a lot of yeah, like AI power Asians? Like, why would you want a lot of AI power Asians in our daily lives?
Well, that's you and me actually. So
Yeah.
um, switching gears a bit, kind of this is author chat now. Um, AI is one of these things, these areas where it feels like it's changing at warp speed. Um, I would be scared to write a book on this topic. Why did you decide to write a book? And I guess how do you write a book on AI, given that it's changing? It seems like every minute.
Well, I decided to write this book because I absolutely hate myself. I have no life. No, I'm
Oh,
just
I know.
kidding. So I think it came about. So actually, like, I've been working in like natural language processing for a while, NLP for a while. I just remember, so I did a poster at NeurIPS. It's a workshop early. It was like a main conference paper. It's a workshop at NeurIPS 2017. I noticed the conclusion of that paper was just like, we need to build better and bigger language models. So the paper
Oh,
was about like how to evaluate, how to use like AI to evaluate the quality of translations. And back then, everyone told me it was crazy, like stupid. Like no one, we would never get the point when we need AI to like AI is good enough to evaluate like translations or things or whatsoever. But I think like I was already pretty bullish on like language models back then. So for me, it was just not like a surprise that language models got better. What was surprising to me was just like I had thought that a small improvement in the model capabilities would only result in a small numbers of new applications. But I was
mm,
wrong. Like just a seemingly small improvement in the model capabilities is like lowering entropy a little, right? It just like opens like so many possibilities. I was really shocked. And we had this like group chat, and one of us was like existential crisis. It's like we just feeling like a friend was like, I felt listless for a whole month. And he's just like he has been doing AI since the 80s, and he's like absolutely amazing and very smart, and he has this feeling. So I decided to just like try to learn as much about it as possible. And I interviewed like so many people. I mean, look into a lot of papers, try and look into all the frameworks. I'm not sure you saw my list tracking of like thousands of like repos. Like it's just a lot of work that is like really, really painful and slow. And then I made so much notes. I was like, okay, maybe I have enough materials for a book. And then that's when the idea for this book came about. And I did have this question, is like, is this now the right time to write a book about generative AI because things are still changing so fast? But then I realized it's like a lot of those concepts actually are not new, right? Like even though a lot of applications are new and we have like a lot of new techniques, the fundamentals of how things work like don't are still there. Um, so I think that made me feel better. And second is that like I also focus on a more of like a problem and solutions approach. So that means that I look at like the core problems And then I asked myself, like, hey, is that problem? Is that due to like a fundamental limitations of AI? Or is just like temporary? Like, it's just because AI is not quite there yet and will change in the future, right? So first of all, like one thing is just like in the early day of prompt engineering, a lot of us like, hey, you should use questions like Q instead of questions in your prompt. Like a lot of like neat like a lot of hacking things is a prompt chain. Like you don't use a question mark or like bribe the model with like, hey, if you answer this question correctly, it would give you like $300 or something like that. Like try to get the models to answer. And it was like, this seems like quite temporary because it just feel like, and so I read another paper, it's just like the stronger the model becomes, the more robust the model is to like on the prompt perturbations. So like
Mm,
this kind of questioning that really forced me to think about like, hey, is this like really fundamental limitation of AI? Or is just because the AI models are quite strong enough yet. And I focus on those fundamentals. I do mention some of like things that might change quickly, but I focus more on the fundamental. And also like says that certain things that I also like have a lot of smart friends. I'm very, very fortunate.
oh,
Joe, you're
thank
one of
you.
them. Yeah. So I do rely on them to see what they think. The book is pretty heavily reviewed. Like it's reviewed by researchers from like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. It's reviewed by a lot of like engineers. It's reviewed by industry leaders. Like we have a one yeah, maybe you can see the
Well, I mean, it was
acknowledgement.
stacked. I
Yeah,
was looking at
yeah.
the acknowledgments. I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good group. So,
Yeah, so the book is very heavily reviewed. And also like a lot of things change during the process of writing the book. And a lot of them actually help me validate my hypothesis and make me feel better because like it's helped me understand that I was on the right track. So for example, like AI as a judge, I think some people couldn't LM as a judge. So in the beginning, people was like, you no, it's crazy. Like that sounds like an oxymoron, like you have AI about the AI. But I think that today a lot of people are like more excited about it. Or the I think it was like at the point it was like pretty sure a lot of like benchmarks were going to go outdated because like models were started very, very quickly. And I think it's like that I think it makes a decision and not to like focus too much on like individual benchmarks and focusing on like general approach evaluations because like benchmark will just like goes outdated. Like the models just keep on like getting a perfect score on it. Then there's
yeah.
no differentiations. So I did see that a lot of benchmark went outdated. And also it's quite okay. I'm not saying this like there's few things that happen. I'm not saying it because of me, but I'm very happy that it went that way. So first of all, I was complaining about like Hugging Face has this Hugging Face has this amazing OpenLM leaderboard. And as a point, I was like, why did the leaderboard is like rank models based on how these models perform on like a subset of benchmarks. And at that point, it has like Hugging Face OpenLM leaderboard has had four benchmarks. I was just like, why these four benchmarks of like thousands of benchmarks out there? And and why is this like I don't see any correlations like because like this is the art of choosing benchmark to like rank models is like quite fascinating, right? So it was like I was hoping to get some Q like guidance from like Hacking Face because they have great team, but I didn't couldn't find anything. So I posted on their Slack and I was asking, and the answer was just like because we thought it's like those seemed reasonable. So it was I was very grateful for their like I think they were very responsive. But then like a few months later they changed like introduced a new leaderboard. And they have this amazing blog post like explaining why they chose this benchmarks. Like the new leaderboard with six new benchmarks and they had a really great show of like correlations between those benchmarks. I was like, yes, we this is
That's
like
awesome.
really, really helpful and I cited in my book. So I feel like a lot of those is like help me understand like getting more confidence in my more confidence in my materials.
That is the hard part, though, isn't it? Because I think there's the writing process is interesting. When you're writing, I think you have an idea of what it is you're trying to say, but validation is an interesting thing I've always found because it's easy for I think especially when you have a really good group of people like you did, blind spots that you have when you're thinking about the material, when you're writing, there's things that come out of left field. Um, did that happen to you often? I know it happens to me all the time when I write. People point out stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, I should have thought about that. So do you have any blind
I
spots when you're writing?
mean, this is a good experience when we encounter things that we previously didn't know. It would be very sad if I just go through life and it's like, oh, this year I didn't learn anything new, right?
Yeah.
So I'm suddenly there are things like, huh, I didn't think about that before. And I'm like pretty, pretty happy, I like grateful when that
Yeah.
opportunity happens. Mm, you're like putting me on the spot right now. I need to think of like something specific. Like you have this in mind and then you just like can't think of anything right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Let
much
me email you after we're done.
just fax me. That's fine.
Yeah.
How much did you how much were you using LLMs while you're writing your book? And I guess and how would you use LLMs if you did?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I actually did analysis on it. So I was using both ChatGPT and Claude, and actually exported my conversation with like ChatGPT. So I had about like 3,000 conversations during the process of writing the book with ChatGPT. So I
Wow.
would say I use ChatGPT quite a bit while writing. Um, and and one thing is like it's actually like because one thing is I noticed as a process is like I was referencing a lot of paper. I was reading a lot of papers. And I noticed it's like I don't read papers the same way anymore. Like I don't read the paper from like, I know, it's a past where I read the paper. I mean, I read an abstract, read a conclusion, and then skim the paper. I especially like the discussions, look on the graph. But now it's like I did read the abstract, but then I like throw into ChatGPT and I ask
Oh,
question,
interesting.
interactive with it. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, maybe the way I read has changed, right? And maybe the way a lot of people read has changed. So it doesn't mean
Mm.
it's like if people don't read things end to end anymore, why should I bother writing things end to end? Does it make sense? It's maybe like
Mm.
question my writing. Like, why do I bother to write a book end to end? If in the future people just throw things into AI and like ask it interactively. So
Interesting.
it's like it's just tough. Like, so I actually spent a lot of time thinking about like what kind of writing are is easier to automate than other. Like what is hard, right? And I realized a few things. Like, for example, like the kind of what question are easy to answer. Like
Yeah.
explaining what it is quite easy. If you ask like ChatGPT, hey, explain to me what it can give you like 1,000 different kind of definition, explanation, like as explain to you as if you were five, explain to you as if you were like a rice farmer or whatever. Like it's pretty good at that. But what is really hard is to like extract some kind of structure, like some kind of like narrative to help people understand things. So, okay, so if you know the question, searching for that answer is a lot easier. But the hard part is to ask the right question. So that's what I made me realize it's like writing or communications or teaching. It's not about giving the students the right answers, but about like helping the readers or the student find the right questions. So I focus on my writing is like really the right questions.
That's really interesting. Hmm.
Sorry, is it like too much
No, no, no.
philosophical?
You have me thinking about this the rest of the day. Because I haven't. So I use LLMs too. I use Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT to converse with, and always get different answers from different ones. Sometimes they're consistent, but I always find it helps me as I write my book. I use it to think through ideas, and I'll give it excerpts of my book, and I'll say, "Okay, just review it from this angle, review it from this," and it'll always come up with stuff that I did never think of. I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And I also find that if I have a group of friends that are tech reviewing with me, um, if we all miss something, if one of us misses something, I think all of us are going to miss it because we kind of have a hive mind, and I think there's a lot of group biases, whereas the LLM is more objective, I suppose. And yeah, it's been a good counterweight. I think it's accelerated my ability to think through ideas. So I'll just be the weirdo who just walks around for days on end thinking about something. Roaming the streets. I don't know, homeless looking, but it's how it is. So, but
Yeah. No, this is pretty cool. I do find AI is very useful tool for me in writing and thinking. But I do need to jump
yeah, no worries.
soonish.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll chat soon. But anyway, thanks for hopping on for a bit. And I'll plug your book. Congrats again. And
Thank you so
we'll see you
much.
soon. All right, take care of you. Bye.
It's always a